I say this with seriousness and respect, but your department is out of control. You are spending like you don't have a budget. You're on the verge of running out of money for the fiscal year. You are illegally refusing to spend funds that have been authorized by this Congress and appropriated by this committee. You are ignoring the immigration laws of this nation, implementing a brand new immigration system that you have invented that has little relation to the statutes that you are required, that you are commanded to follow, as spelled out in your oath of office. You are routinely violating the rights of immigrants who may not be citizens, but whether you like it or not, they have constitutional and statutory rights when they reside in the United States. Your agency acts as if laws don't matter, as if the election gave you some mandate to violate the Constitution and the laws passed by this Congress. It did not give you that mandate. You act as if your disagreement with the law, or even the public's disagreement with the law, is relevant and gives you the ability to create your own law. It does not give you that ability. Let's start with your spending. You are on track to trigger the Anti-Deficiency Act. That means...
Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Trump administration has faced recent waste, fraud and abuse. This comes with not obey court orders, overspending, and the recent resettlement of white Afrikaners using taxpayers' money. Many want Trump out, but Trump keeps on saying about this era was the overspending government. Abuse of power has a major impact on U.S. economy. Let's watch.
Means you are going to spend more money than you have been allocated by Congress. This is a rare occurrence, and it is wildly illegal. Your agency will be broke by July, over 2 months before the end of the fiscal year. You may not think that Congress has provided enough money to ICE, but the Constitution and the federal law does not allow you to spend more money than you have been given or to invent money. And this obsession with spending at the border, as the chairwoman mentioned, has left the country unprotected elsewhere. The security threats to the United States are higher, not lower, than before Trump came to office. To fund the border, you have illegally gutted spending for cybersecurity. As we speak, Russian and Chinese hackers are having a field day attacking our nation. You've withdrawn funds for disaster prevention. Storms are going to kill more people in this country because of your illegal withholding of these funds. Your myopia about the border, fueled by President Trump's prejudice against people who speak a different language, has shattered many of this country's most important defenses. Now let's talk about the impoundments. When Congress appropriates funds for a specific purpose, the administration has no discretion as to whether to spend or not spend that money unless you go through a very specific process with this committee. Let me give you two of many instances of this illegal impoundment. The first is a shelter and services program. Senator Britt may want to zero that account out, but that account is funded, and it was funded in a bipartisan way. You don't like the program. Your policy is to treat migrants badly. I think that's abhorrent, but it doesn't matter that you don't like the program. You cannot cancel spending in this program, and you cannot use the funds as you have to fund other things, like ICE. You have also canceled citizenship and integration grants, which help lawful permanent residents become citizens, helping them take the citizenship test. I know your goal is to try to make life as hard as possible for immigrants, but that goal is not broadly shared by the American public. That's why Congress, in a bipartisan way, for decades, has funded this program to help immigrants in this country become citizens. Now let's talk about why encounters at the southern border are down so much. This is clearly going to be your primary talking point today. You will tell us that it represents a success. But the primary reason why encounters are down is because you are brazenly violating the law every hour of every day. You are refusing to allow people showing up at the southern border to apply for asylum. I acknowledge that you don't believe that people should be able to apply for asylum, but you don't get to choose that. The White House doesn't get to choose that. The law requires you to process people who are showing up at the border and who claim asylum. Why? Because our asylum law is a bipartisan commitment, an effort to correct for our nation's unconscionable decision to deny entry to Jews to this country who were being hunted and killed by the Nazis. Our nation, Republicans and Democrats, decided, wrote it into law, that we would not repeat that horror ever again, and thus we would allow for people who were fleeing terror and torture to come here, arrive at the border, and make a case for asylum. Finally, let's talk about these disappearances. In an autocratic society, people who the regime does not like are people who are protesting the regime. They are just often picked up off the street, spirited away, sometimes to open-ended detention. Sometimes they're never seen again. What you are doing, both the individuals who have legal rights to stay here, like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, or students who are just protesting Trump's policies, is immoral. And to follow the theme, it is illegal. You have no right to deport a student visa holder with no due process simply because they have spoken in a way that offends the president. You can't remove migrants who a court has given humanitarian protection from removal. Now, reports suggest that you are planning to remove immigrants with no due process and send them to prisons in Libya. Libya is in the middle of a civil war. It is subject to a level 4 travel advisory, meaning we tell American citizens never to travel to Libya. We don't have an embassy there because it is not safe for our diplomats. Sending migrants with pending asylum claims into a war zone just because it's cruel is so deeply disturbing. Listen, I understand that my Republican colleagues on this committee don't view the policy the way that I do. My Republican colleagues don't share my level of concern for the way that this administration treats immigrants. That's fine. But what I don't understand is why we don't have consensus in the Senate and on this committee on the decision by this administration to impound the spending that we have decided together to allocate in defense of this nation. We as an appropriations committee, we work interminable hours to write and pass a budget. This budget is really hard to write and pass. And so we make ourselves irrelevant when we allow the administration to ignore what we have decided. And then when we look the other way, when the administration rounds up immigrants who are here illegally and have committed no offenses worthy of detainment, we also do potential irreversible damage to the Constitution. These should not be partisan concerns, destroying the power of Congress, eroding individuals' constitutional rights. This should matter to both parties.
Hi, just jumping in for a second because I'm already seeing a lot of Republicans and Republican supporters who are saying these cuts they're doing to Medicare and Medicaid is just them trying to cut out the fraud, waste, and abuse. Because they love to say that. They love fraud, waste, and abuse. But they don't actually care about the fraud, waste, and abuse because they're supporting Trump and his firing of all the people who actually do seek out fraud, waste, and abuse in the government. But regardless of that, Republicans don't care because they are perfectly content to support people who actively commit fraud, waste, and abuse in the Medicare system. If you don't know who I'm talking about, I'm referring to Rick Scott, current senator from Florida and former governor from the state of Florida. Now, Rick Scott, in the late 90s, was the CEO of a company called Columbia HCA. It was a hospital system that is currently holding the record for the largest fine the federal government has ever given out related to Medicare or Medicaid, which is a staggering $1.7 billion. In the 90s, they were utilizing the Medicare Medicaid system to bill for tests they never performed and abuse seniors by saying they were doing these tests and performing all these procedures on these seniors who did not know any better, that they never were actually doing, and they used it to get extra money out of the Medicare Medicaid system. And Republicans have been happy to support him. They supported him in 2019 when he ran for the Senate. They've supported him when he ran for the governor. This is a known fact about Rick Scott. This is not like an unknown thing. This is a known fact about the gentleman that is Rick Scott. And Republicans are perfectly happy to support a known fraudster like Rick Scott while then screaming about fraud, waste, and abuse. Because at the end of the day, they don't actually care about fraud, waste, and abuse. They say they do, but they don't actually care about it. All they want to do is they just want to use that to justify these cuts so they can take money away from the Medicare system, take money away from the working poor, and then use these tax cuts that they're putting in the same bill to put more money in the hands of the rich. Because at the end of the day, once again, they only care about their wealth, their power, and their money. They only care about helping the rich and screwing you over if you're a working poor.
And you people don't give a shit. And he's even worse now. You know that Donald Trump, despite all of the cuts, phony cuts from Doge and Elon Musk and all of that. By the way, I don't hear much of Elon Musk anymore. What is he up to? Used to hear from this jackass every single day he was in the Oval Office holding court. Haven't heard much from him lately. Anyway, even with all the supposed cuts and saving from Doge and Elon Musk, Donald Trump is still spending more than we were spending when Joe Biden was president. Not quite the fiscal conservative he claims to be, right? And by the way, why do we even have to raise the debt ceiling at all? I don't get it. Because I distinctly remember the convicted felon telling us that because of his tariffs, we were going to be making so much money that not only would we balance the budget, and if we're balancing the budget, then we don't need to borrow any money, right? Well, we'd make so much money that not only would we balance the budget year to year, but we'd have so much extra money that we would be able to pay off completely our $36 trillion debt. And not only that, but we will be able to get rid of the income tax because we will make so much money from tariffs. So if we were going to be making so much money from his brilliant tariff scheme, then why do we need to raise the debt ceiling? How does that make sense? Oh, maybe it's because the Orange God King caved. You know, I haven't talked about this, I haven't done a video about this yet, but you're aware that he put these 145% tariff on China. Well, no more. He buckled. He caved. Art of the deal and whatnot, right? And what did we get in exchange for him backing off on the tariffs? They're still high, 30%, but they're a lot lower than 145%. What did we get in exchange for that from China? Nothing. We got nothing. The art of the deal, right? Well, maybe that's why we have to raise the debt ceiling and continue to add to the national debt, because brilliant genius businessman who plays four-dimensional chess got his ass handed to him and had to back off on the tariffs. Maybe that's why we're not going to make so much money on the tariffs that we can pay off the debt and eliminate the income tax. This whole thing is such a freaking fraud, and these MAGAs fall for it every single time. And the truth is, they don't care, because it's a cult. What are you going to do?
It's clear enough, Trump is enjoying the power as the President of the United States. Recent allegations of corruption has impacted the US economy. With Elon Musk now nowhere to be seen, Trump administration is really doing the worst fraud and abuse. Do you support the saying Trump is corrupt, abuses the office, and is involved in fraud? Let me know what you think about the above questions, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.